Yes, people, what is going on? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. The last one for a little while, and we have a lot to talk about. But before we go any further, Cameron, how are we? How are you doing?
I'm all good. How are you, Ian?
I'm good. You're off to Liverpool tomorrow?
Yeah, I don't know. It's
Yeah,
going to be very
a nice
exciting.
little day away.
Exactly.
It's nice when the football season finishes and these things can actually become a reality, which is very, very nice.
Yeah, just celebrate half anniversary. That's all it is. 5.5
half
years.
anniversary.
Yeah, 5.5 years together. I do the full one. She does the half ones. All works out very
And
nicely.
she deserves a medal.
Yes.
She deserves a medal. Anyway, enough of all of that. Let's get straight on into the football. Obviously, the biggest game and the first thing we're going to talk about, and what we're going to spend a fair chunk of this podcast talking about, the Champions League final. Before we sort of get into it massively, do you think the right team won, Cameron?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay,
That's not even in question. It was a successful hate watch, I think, for the whole of England, bar some bits of North London. And
there was other bits of North London where were loving it, I have to say.
Oh, yeah, they were probably screaming louder than the PSG fans. But yeah, the game itself, I actually thought was a really good game. And it was kind of what we were expecting. Whereas, you've got unstoppable force meets an immovable object. PSG attack Arsenal's defence. And I thought the fact that Arsenal scored first, really early, PSG knew they had to come out more. But then I don't think then Arsenal kind of took full advantage of that as well, because obviously PSG were chasing the goal for a good hour. Then after, even in the second half, you're thinking, okay, they're still 1-0 down, they have to go for it more. And so Arsenal, I think they'd done well in points in the first half to try and counter-attack, try and bring the ball forward, try and just get a free kick to then lead to another opportunity. But then there wasn't a lot of that in the second half, which I think allowed PSG to just control the game a lot more, create more chances for themselves, but also then realise that, okay, we're in control, we can also slow it down when we need to, and just keep calm, knowing that the goal will come. And in reality, it was only an Arsenal mistake in the end by Mascara to give away the penalty that actually led PSG back into the game. Because other than that, they didn't really trouble Riot at all, which I think was really good defending by Arsenal. But again, it was just that one mistake that killed them off. And then from there, Arsenal did have a bit of, not necessarily chances, but times when they managed to get forward, maybe put PSG under a bit of pressure towards the end of the second half and a bit in extra time. But then other than that, they didn't offer a lot going forward, apart from that first chance they got where they scored. And it was one of those ones where it's it feels like Arsenal just trying to smash and grab it, well, then trying to take part in the Champions League final.
I think I do agree massively about the smash and grab completely. I think that when you think about Arsenal as a football team, you think about how the game went. I actually think Arsenal, looking back at it now, and it will sound mental, and I know Arsenal fans will probably be a little bit rage baited by this, but it actually seemed as if they scored too early and it mucked up their game plan. That was where I sort of stood on it, because don't get me wrong, obviously if a ball comes your way and you can finish it the first 5 minutes, you do it. That's irrelevant. But where I will start to then point the finger isn't at Arsenal's individual performances, because I know even on the commentary and on the punditry, it's Laura Wood, so of course she's a little bit biased towards Arsenal, just a little bit. But they came out and they played in a certain way, and she was, to be fair to Laura Wood, she was talking about individual battles won with the PSG players for the Arsenal players. And I looked at it and I was like, that's actually pretty spot on. I actually thought that Arsenal did okay in terms of winning their individual battles, especially in the first half. But the individual battles that we're talking about were all defensive minded. Everything was defensive minded. And that want to then go and stretch the pitch and get forward, I don't think it disappeared. I just think that Arsenal ran out of ideas. And I think that when you knew that you had that, because there was all the talk about the right back and who was going to play there and everything, obviously it was Mascara, but there was a lot of talk about that. And I think that even if you look at how Arsenal set up, you had four essentially centre-backs, playing across the back four. You're only sort of ever going to ask for one sort of game to happen. And let's be honest, Everton have done it many a time as well. Like, it's not an outdated tactic at all. It's you go in and you defend and you keep yourself part of the game, which is absolutely fine. But this is where I think that Arteta has lost it a little bit as a manager, and I think a lot of people are being very respectful about that. It's the fact that when you think big picture about what Arteta did in this game, he reduced Arsenal's best attacking player to be defensive cover down the right-hand side, because Saka in this game I thought was sort of non-existent. And the way that PSG got the penalty was because Mosquera at right back, you say it was a mistake, but I think they played him perfectly because of the fact that he had to make a tackle. The 1-2 was so good, he had to make a tackle. Otherwise, the ball was going to go straight across goal and it was going to be a chance at goal. Now, that's Mosquera individually making the tackle. Got it wrong, it is what it is. But PSG perfectly picked that out. And I think that they constantly kept going down that side because they knew that Saka was going to be helping defensively as well. And don't get me wrong, I think Arsenal's options off the bench did definitely make the game better. And we were speaking just before we started this about how much better Arsenal were after they conceded. And I wouldn't even say they were that much better. I'd just say that they were non-existent for a large chunk of the game. But particularly in a game like this, where the centre-backs we've seen previously have got flaws. I mean, Chelsea last year in the Club World Cup final beat them 3-0. You look at the semi-final, obviously, against Bayern Munich. They were scoring goals for fun. I know that's a very good attack, but still, the defensive unit has to do some sort of work in that regard. And I think that actually, when they played the two up top with Havertz just off of Gyökeres, when they brought him on, they looked 10 times better. And that was the thing. It was, if Arsenal were to have continued to attack in this game, I don't think they'd have been in a position where they go on to lose it. I actually thought it was Arsenal's to lose. And even if they would have kept the pressure on, forget about scoring another goal. I mean, that may or may not have come. But if you keep the pressure on, you would have then limited PSG to coming forward. And they didn't do that. They just purely went defensive minded and paid the price for it. And the only person that can really hold their hands up and say anything, and I know the Arsenal fans have got behind the players massively, and obviously the shootout we'll come on to later on, but I don't think in that game you can really point the finger at anyone else but Mikel Arteta.
Yeah, I think it was the game plan I'd say just to, like any team like away from home say, it's like, okay, let's see out the first 10-15 minutes, see how we are. Can we maybe just frustrate the crowd, frustrate the other team, just so they, start losing their heads a tiny bit. Not necessarily, because only the first few minutes, sure. But it's like, okay, let's just make sure we can get ourselves through it. The fact they scored, like you said, probably ruined the plan. It was like, okay, we're 1-0 up 5 minutes in. And then in his head, he's probably thinking, that wasn't part of the plan. We were meant to get a corner later on and, do that kind of stuff. But I think, yeah, the goal hindered them. And I think then afterwards, it was just a case of, okay, we know PSG are going to attack us. We know we're better at defending. Let's just, hold out as long as we can. Trust the players to defend. And again, I thought they'd done a really good job defensively. And so you said, yeah, I agree with the really good 1-2 before the penalty, but like Mosquera still could just let.
Oh yeah, he still dives in. Like, don't get me wrong, but
like,
again, I think it's good play to get round him.
Yeah, it was, but it's like, okay, could Mosquera then have trusted the rest of the defense or the keeper to, maybe just make a save? But then if it goes in, fine, it's just a good PSG goal. But then it's like penalty, you're kind of like giving PSG a free goal. And it's like,
completely.
Dembele started to score it, and he did with good conviction. And then, after that, then it was just a case of, okay, 1-1 now. PSG could relax a bit more, because obviously they've been using all their energy just try and find a way through. Where Arsenal then is like, defending is a lot more tiring anyway, because you're playing without the ball. So it's like, by the time that happened, then you're probably thinking, okay, what energy levels do Arsenal have? How can they then go and attack after they've defended for the last hour? And it's like, it's a complete momentum shift. It's like when the only kind of fun I can compare it to is when you beat Bayern in 2012, where it's like Bayern were all over you for a lot of the game. You were defending a lot for that game. And then it was a case of like, then Bayern went ahead with about 10 minutes to go. And then it was like, okay, well, Chelsea now have to come out. But then because you can attack, you weren't a defensive-minded team in that year.
No.
It was a case of like, okay, well, we're better at attacking. Let's just go for it last 10 minutes. And it's like you had the players. You had Mata, Drogba, Torres, even though he wasn't at his best, he was still an elite striker. And then it's like...
Kalou, Bertrand as well. Bertrand started as a left-back. You got to think we had, like, I think it was Florian Malouda to bring on as well. Like, we had attacking options.
Yeah, but then it's like, in that game, because Bayern was so used to attacking in that game, they're like, okay, we've got to defend now against Chelsea, who we haven't seen a lot of. Oh my God, they're attacking us. Oh my God, they've got a corner. Oh my God, they've just scored. And it's like...
And that was the first corner of the game as well, that one, just to throw that in.
But it's like, that complete momentum shift and then change of mindset then ruined it. Whereas like with PSG, it's like Arsenal didn't make them change their mindset in the game, because like PSG, they were in control the whole game. Possession-wise, they were in control.
They were.
They limited Arsenal to, one shot on target, which was the goal in the first few minutes. And it's thinking like, okay, well, if anything, Arsenal still made it quite easy for PSG then to try and, actually win the Champions League final, because Arsenal, again, they didn't offer a lot going forward. They had moments where they got into the final third. You think, okay, this could turn into a bit of a half chance, but nothing really to trouble Savinov, because I don't think he was forced then to make any other saves or any like catches or anything like that. So it was not
really.
It was an easy game for the Russian, really. When it came to the penalties, like, which we're going to move on to probably now anyway, both missed the target.
Yeah.
And
I think
he could have just stood in the middle of the whole game, conceded the one goal from Havertz, which was just a great finish anyway. And the penalties, he could have just stood in the middle of the whole time, and they still would have won.
I mean, yeah, as you perfectly said, we'll move on to the penalties very shortly, but just to round up, yes, completely agree. I think when you've got a goalkeeper who, let's be honest, was very unproven and also conceded as many goals as he did in that semi-final, I'd want to go and attack him. And I have to be honest, even after the first goal, he doesn't cover himself in any glory. He doesn't close down the angle. He doesn't make himself big. He literally leaves that top corner above his head open, and Havertz smashes it in. Like, it's not even a good goal, but it's when you're given an opportunity like that, yeah, of course you're going to do it. And I completely agree that, I think a lot of people were talking about, the goalkeeping situation and whatever for PSG. I looked at it. I mean, I was looking at obviously the benches and the whole squads when it all came out. I looked at Arsenal's bench and thought, wow, they've got talent on it. And I looked at PSG's and I was there going like, there's only probably 2-3 people I'd bring on here. And I think, again, when you've got that intent and you've got that know-how about the other team, where you know what their squad's like, you know everything about them, you would have studied everything for the last pretty much week and a half, because even the Palace game was completely irrelevant as they'd already won the league. I think that I do think it was a massive oversight from Arsenal as a football club about how they went about this Champions League final, because you never tested the goalkeeper. He was pretty much the most useless person on the pitch because you didn't test him. Arsenal's major strength has been set pieces, where you can only get one if you actually attack and go and try and win one, whether it be a free kick or a corner. I just think that Arsenal set up completely wrong in this game, and they paid the price for it. And I know Arsenal fans, especially online, and what we've seen in the last couple of days, obviously the parade in North London and different things. Arsenal fans, I think, are very proud of the players, and that seems to be there's this massive support around the hard work that's gone into the whole season and the hard work that went into the final, although they lost. For me, I wouldn't look at that as I was proud of the players. I would look at that more as I'm annoyed with the manager. And I think that even in the game, I just never, when you look to the tactical masterclass between the two sides and about who might do what, Arteta was very weak. He was very throw his toys out of the pram, I actually think, at quite a few times. There was the one that I can't remember exactly when it is in the game. It's definitely towards the latter stages. Might have been an extra time, I'm not sure. but there was a potential penalty that
Okay.
Arteta kept moaning for. That the second you see the replay, it obviously hits his knee. His arm isn't anywhere near it. And I think that he was one of those people, Arteta, who has got himself into position and truthfully was just massively out of his depth. And I think if he didn't have the squad that he did, I do think PSG would have gone on to batter them. But it almost felt as if Arteta just had no confidence in his defence that has been very, very good all year. And when you're setting up defensive minded, what are you expecting to happen? But either way, we'll move on from that. Coming on to the penalties. I mean, obviously, a lot of PSG scored. We're not going to go for every single penalty and everything. But the three big ones, of course, it was the Eze miss, which is the most barbaric thing I think I've ever seen someone do on a football pitch. The idea that you can literally copy the exact penalty that's just been done before you and try and get the same result. I will question. I won't question as they going up to take a penalty, and obviously you've got to have the confidence to go and step up anyway. I'll give appreciation where it's due, but when you're in a game of that magnitude, you pick a corner and you hit it. You know, like I get that when other people are doing different run ups and it's what works for you, your ego goes out the window at that point. And I think that run up sort of set the tone for what was coming. It was, yes, fine, the miss was the miss. You miss the target completely. If he'd have done that and it had been saved, he tried to send the goalkeeper the wrong way. But to miss the target after doing that, I thought was really poor from Eze. And Eze will be beating himself up about that. But when you then go on to literally the following penalty, the mind shift that would then come because of the momentum change, because of the fact that Nuno Mendes hit one of the most savable penalties I think I've ever seen in my life. It was a great height for the goalkeeper. It wasn't well struck. He had been on the pitch for the whole game, so I do slightly question maybe why would you take a penalty? And I have to say, I actually thought Nuno Mendes in this game was really poor. Like, I really, really have started to change my mindset on Nuno Mendes as being one of the best left backs in the world. I thought he had an absolute stinker, and I've seen a couple in recent times where I'm like, I'm not 100% certain he is the player that we all potentially think he is. Even a year ago, I said he might even be in a Ballon d'Or conversation. I thought it was class. But he seemed like all over the place. He wasn't having a good game. I don't know if it was his confidence or someone said about who was obviously going to take the penalties and whatever. I don't know. I wasn't there. But he stepped up. It's a very savable penalty. And I think now for Arsenal, that's the point where you're going like, right, well, we're in this. 100% we're in this. It's essentially sudden death at this point. You know, you've made a save. A good save as well from Raya. You still got to get two hands behind it and push it out. And it is a decent stop. But I then struggle to see how, with the attacking talent and the fresh legs that are on the pitch, why the hell would you send up Gabriel?
Well,
I don't get it. I just don't understand it at all. He's not a good striker of a ball. In a crucial moment, it's the wrong call, completely the wrong call. Especially when you had players like, and I will call them out, you had Madueke, who kept banging on about wanting to take penalties when he was at Chelsea, all of a sudden doesn't put his hand up or gets overlooked. Where's this coming from? Because someone's messed up. I mean, I still would have given Madueke a penalty because he's a proper striker of a ball. I wouldn't have had confidence he'd have scored it, I've got to be honest. But, I mean, he's still a confident striker of the ball. When you miss a target twice in a shootout, you're asking for problems.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where it's like, okay, they've done well to get to penalties, and obviously then it's just luck of the draw as well when it comes down to penalties. But you've already mentioned it. When it's a game of this magnitude, just whack it into a corner. Like, don't faff around. Try and beat the keeper with power rather than, you know, start a step trying to make him jump. Because that's just a normal penalty now. Like, they know that they'd be training with this. There's probably players in the PSG team that do it anyway after training for the keeper. So it's like, it's all...
Well, Doué literally did it the step before. I assume that is his normal penalty routine and step up. So Sovanov would have seen it before.
Yes, obviously it's your normal penalty step up sometimes, but like, sometimes you're just like, right, I'm going to put it in this corner. I'm going to hit it really hard. and it's going to be a case of the keeper won't be able to get down to it rather than, give him a shot. Like we've seen over Harry Kane, his penalties, bar, his second one against France in the last World Cup, you can see a lot of his penalties before that, he just hit it really hard, bottom left, and even if the keeper went the right way, he's not touching it at all. I'm looking through,
and I have to say, a great example of that, Cameron, because you're spot on. I'm pretty sure, was it the Euro semi-final at Wembley 2021? I'm pretty sure Harry Kane absolutely levered the ball, was saved by the goalkeeper, but it's so hard into the corner, the keeper spilled it, and Harry Kane then scored the rebound.
Yeah, so it's
like I know obviously that's an open game situation, but still the right thing to do.
Yeah,
if a keeper makes a good save, fair enough, but it's still, that is the idea.
Yeah, it's like a normal game, you're thinking, okay, how can I make it difficult for the keeper and potentially get a second chance if I do miss? But then it's like in this shootout, you're like, I've just got to score. That's it. I've got to make sure it goes in. And it's like, I always just want the players just to whack it. And I'm looking back through it. Gyökeres, I'm sure he whacked it. Rice and Martinelli had really good pens as well, where they just went. And it's only the ones where they decided to just start a step, try and catch the keeper out, Gabriel and Eze, were the ones they missed. And it's like Mendes, you mentioned, he just looked tired. He didn't look confident.
He was knackered, wasn't he?
Yeah,
he was knackered.
He wanted to take a penalty, Mendes, but then it's a case of when he gets up there, I think it just still hits him. It's like, I'm knackered. This is a big moment. Arsenal have just missed as well. If I score, we can, get ourselves in touching distance. I think there's just a lot of pressure on that spot kick, which is why Mendes missed. In the game, I do agree with you. I think he wasn't really involved as much, but I think he's better defensively anyway.
I actually thought he had a mare defensively, because I thought he got caught underneath the ball a couple of times. I really wasn't impressed.
This was more just like a general, not necessarily in the game. I think he is better defensively one-on-one when he can bully his wing up. But because Saka's staying outside his own box for the 120 minutes, he's like, okay, well, I've got all this space. When I attack, there's normally a lot more space on the counter-attack. So he's probably thinking, this is not my kind of normal game to be involved in. And then obviously he got booked as well. So
yeah, it didn't help.
Yeah, so it's like, I know that was late on, but it's like, that's a very different mindset then. It's like, that could have just been frustration, again, from tiredness. And it's like, okay, well, again, not my normal game, not my best game, but I'd say he still is like one of the best fullbacks in the world. Okay, it wasn't his best game, but like, it's a Champions League final. Like, some players just, can't quite do it.
But then that's where the cream rises to the top. And I didn't massively think he had a great game, but then I could say that for many a player. I didn't think the game was a good game of football. I thought it was quite boring at times, and I think that, on social media afterwards, when you're starting seeing, and I will talk very briefly about the Arsenal fans that seem to be very annoyed that other people are all taking the mick out of them, which I have to say I do find quite funny. But the idea that essentially PSG won the game for football, I don't know if you saw this going around, like football was the winner of this game. It was so true, because Arsenal's tactics were just not set up for any sort of success. And I think, again, when you talk about how the game was and the flow of it and everything, particularly with the Arsenal fans, everyone's very quick to go and defend their team. And this is what Arsenal fans have always done and always will do. They keep talking. That's the thing. They keep talking and keep talking and keep talking. Some of them are right. A lot of them are not. And I think the thing when it comes to this is that you're in a Champions League final. Finals aren't things that Arsenal have been that good at.
No.
To be honest. They haven't been that good at finals. They've never been that good at finals. I can't tell you the last domestic competition they won. I know it's the FA Cup. I think it was against us in 2020. That would be my guess.
At the same time, everyone was beating you in cup finals in that stretch. So
exactly. And also we had, if you go back and look at decisions in that game, and it was shocking. But Kovacic got sent off for having his foot stepped on, but that's a different matter. Anyway, you go and look at Arsenal's record in finals, and you go and look about how they've been as a team, you can't really expect anything different, Arsenal fans, because you sort of knew what was coming, because you've never put in a decent performance in a final, it seems. Not in recent years anyway. It's you play stupid games and you win stupid prizes, and that is essentially, I think, what happened. And with the whole football one, when it comes to a tactical point of view, they are correct. Everyone is correct, and Arsenal fans are annoyed by that. But it's totally true, and I think actually, what I saw from a lot of people was a rejoicedness, that Arsenal didn't win this game. It wasn't PSG winning it. They didn't care about that. It was Arsenal not winning. And the reason why is because, yes, fine, we're all football fans and we don't want to support rivals. That is how part and parcel of it works, yes. But also, again, play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. If they expected to go and win like that, we were all sitting at home going, well, you're not going to win Champions League final like that. You're not going to win Champions League final like that. And even when they got the goal, I think everyone sort of felt it was more a case of when, not if PSG scored. And that is totally the wrong mindset for anything going on realistically in football and whatever. But, to sort of round off this section, Cameron, I mean, Arsenal deserve to lose. I think we are in agreement. And I think actually what really the main thing that got highlighted in this, and I want to know if you agree with me to round it off, the main thing I think that got highlighted in this game is the fact of actually how bad the Premier League has been. Because if that is our champions that have gone on to make a Champions League semi-final, Champions League final, not semi-final, Champions League final, and that was the performance that they put in, it was really not a good advert for English football. And that's why I think a lot of English fans were like, yeah, good. I'm glad that you lost. We weren't doing it with Villa. We weren't doing it with Palace. The reason we weren't doing it with Villa is because they play actually decent football. Palace, it was like, oh, well, it'll be the first time in their history they've won it. Yeah, let's go and support them. Absolutely fine. Brilliant. But when you look at the support there was last week from neutral fans for Aston Villa, because of the fact they went out and played that game of football to the best of their ability and did it so well and played football the proper way and won it the proper way. When you then go and get the flip side of that and you get Arsenal who don't do the same thing, why are you expecting any different result?
Yeah, no, I do agree. It's like I wouldn't say the Premier League is poor in that aspect. I think it's just a case of obviously PSG are just very good and they have the money.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt the camera. I'm going to say the Premier League is rubbish. I'm actually going to say the Premier League this season has been rubbish. You look at Liverpool, you look at Man United, who have got to where they have with the squad that they have. It's no disrespect to Man United, but when you're finishing outside of European places last year, I know obviously they've had a big momentum shift, but obviously they've come back up now. It's because teams like Chelsea have dropped off. It's because obviously Tottenham haven't shown up. You look at Newcastle, Liverpool at times this season haven't been wonderful. There's been spells where things have gone on. I think it was a case of Arsenal won the league because everyone else was worse than them, rather than they really went on to deserve to win the league. They were lucky with how they got to the Champions League final, but with all due respect to them, they came top of that group in the qualifying. So they were always going to go and have, a reasonable run in terms of to the final. But a couple of fixtures went in their favour. If Barcelona would have beaten Atletico Madrid, would Arsenal have dealt with Barcelona's attack? I'm going to assume no. But, I think circumstantially, I think that Arsenal were the best team in the Premier League, not because they were absolutely brilliant, it was because everyone else was rubbish, and it just got highlighted in this game.
To an extent, yes. I think it's a case of everyone did drop off. I don't think the level of the Premier League went down. I think a lot of the teams in the middle just performed
yes,
well.
I will. Yeah, that is fair. I will say that they have done well. Teams like Brighton and Sunderland, and yes, 100%. I'll give credit where
it's
it's
like
due.
Even Bournemouth as well. He didn't have a great start. I think it was like a 16-game unbeaten run towards the end of the season, which is unheard of for a team in the middle of the Premier League. As for Europe, obviously Liverpool went out to PSG, same as last year. Man City went out, was it to Real Madrid?
To Real Madrid. Chelsea went out to PSG.
Yeah, so a lot of the English teams, they went out to good opposition and teams where you're looking, okay, yeah, fair enough, like we lost to them. Like PSG, they're one of the few teams in Europe, alongside Real Madrid, like Barcelona, arguably Bayern as well, even though they're a bit more just good with their business, these teams can spend the same amount as Premier League teams and have similar kind of money like influx as Premier League teams. So it's like, I think it does come down to that as well, because I think that's why the Italian teams have struggled a lot more recently as well, because they just can't keep up.
Italian football is football's in a dire position.
Yeah, they can't keep up right now. And so I think it's not necessarily a poor Premier League team. I think European teams that are the ones that we have to play are still just at an elite level where the Prem teams can be, but then it just comes down to what's going on behind the scenes. So obviously Arsenal, very defensive minded, up against PSG, very attack minded. Again, made it easy for him in the final. Liverpool versus PSG. We've had problems with Slot all year. He's now gone.
We'll come on to that later on.
Yeah, we had obviously Jota died at the start of the season, which I know it's we're nearly a year in, but it's still
a factor. It's still a factor, 100%.
Chelsea as well, right? They've spent a lot of money, but then how many managers have you had this season? As well is also a case of it.
And also the other thing as well, I think a lot of people aren't talking about, we all sort of knew there was going to be a slight drop-off from Chelsea because they never really had a pre-season.
No, because
of the Club World Cup.
Yeah, you played competitive games pretty much the whole year round.
We played competitive football essentially from last August.
Yeah, so you're knackered, effectively.
Yeah, sorry, not even last August, 2 Augusts ago.
Yeah, it was like you're knackered. Like you've played so many games, you probably played more than a lot of teams, and it's like, okay, you just can't keep up, which is, I think, not necessarily your fault, but FIFA scheduling, like all that kind of stuff. And then it's like, obviously you're expected to win games, so then you've got to play more games anyway. So it's like, if you're expected to do well in the FA Cup, you're expected to do well in the League Cup, you're expected to do well in the Champions League, and it's like all these games, they do add up. And then it's like, what United this year, obviously we've looked at it and it's like, okay, they've had a good run, but they haven't had European football. So it's like, that's probably where the drop-off was for those top English teams in Europe, where it's just like, it's just too many games. And it's like, we're still playing against the best of the best. Whereas Arsenal, on the other side, their only real tough game...
We're not playing against the best of the best.
Their tough game, in brackets, was Atletico Madrid. But Atletico Madrid over those 2 legs were poor. And they didn't give Arsenal a good game, so they could still walk into the Champions League final, really, without playing anyone good enough to compete with them at the time.
I mean, I will agree. It was Arsenal's run to the final, and again, they deserved it because they went and smashed the group at the start. So you sort of knew they were going to be helped a little bit. But, PSG had to, on the flip side of that, because I'm pretty sure they were... Oh no, Bayern, sorry, I think it was, that were second. You still look at, even Bayern, to be fair, they finished second and then they drew PSG in the semi-final. Matter of maybe goals or points or whatever, I don't know. But I think that when you're coming to, the good side and the bad side, Arsenal were definitely on the favourable side and went on to go on and win it. Chelsea were on the favourable side in the Club World Cup last summer. It happened. It's one of the things, it's the luck of the draw. But I think you had a lot of potential for Arsenal to go and actually really show European football what they can do. And I think they bottled it. And I'm going to round off with this question, Cameron, just to sort of finish this segment. But do you think that the Arsenal team that won the league this year finishes as one of the best 5 Premier League teams that there has ever been?
No.
No. And with respect, that is my point. I think that they're good, but I don't think that they're great. And I think that people need to stop talking as if they are great. There was talks about, are they going to break Chelsea's 15 goals conceded record? Are they going to go and do this? Are they going to go and do that? The answer is no, because they're not at that level. They could be. They definitely could be. And I'm not going to deny that. They've brought well. They've got some good players. But that's when you talk. You don't talk before that, you talk when it happens. And I think that Arsenal fans were getting a little bit too ahead of themselves and now are starting to see how it all comes crumbling down. And you saw that even when they were fighting themselves on the streets of London on Saturday night. But the Champions League final rounds off the Premier League season and the whole football season. Now we come on to the World Cup.
So excited.
Moving on to the next section now, the football season has come to an end, and of course the World Cup is upon us. There's going to be plenty of content coming out for the World Cup. Make sure you stay tuned to all of our social media to find out what that is. But Cameron, how did you think the season went? I mean, obviously there's a lot of change towards the end. We do have to talk about, obviously, you've got a new boss. You've got a new manager in Iriola, who looks set to become the Liverpool manager at time of recording. I think a deal has been agreed. Obviously, no more slot for you. How do you feel about that?
I think he had to go after this season. I think obviously we're very thankful that he got the league last season, and that was a nice turn after obviously having Klopp leave. But I think this season, with all the stuff that's gone on before the season and during the season, I think he lost the dressing room. He also lost the fans. It's very rare Anfield boos at their own team, and that's one of the biggest indications as to what's going on in the club. So I think he had to go. I like him as a person, but I just think he wasn't the right fit for Liverpool Football Club. Because we had Klopp beforehand, and he's like, yeah, this is the club, hugs all around, we're going to do this together, we're going to build up the city. And I didn't feel the same way with Slot. I think
from an outsider, I feel like he was someone who was always destined to fail because he was never going to live up to Klopp. You don't want to be the man that follows the man. That was my thought process.
I do agree with that, but at the same time, it's like he still won the Premier League in his first season. We had a really good run.
But was that Klopp's team?
It was Klopp's team, but you still have to use them properly.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that is fair.
Of it. And it's like Champions League last year, we went out to PSG as well, and in those games, obviously it went to penalties, like another game at the weekend. But it's like that; those two games against them, we beat them at the Parc des Princes, and it's like at Anfield 1-0 Dembele, but like we really gave it a good go, and it's like we were on top for a lot of moments in that game, and it's like that team that afterwards we kind of fell off a little bit, and it's like League Cup we done okay, got far but didn't do much. FA Cup I think we went out pretty early. But it's like
you went out. You also had the unlucky draw of getting City, didn't you, as well? Like if you'd ended up getting Port Vale like we did, you'd be in a semi-final. Yeah,
but it's a case of like, okay, I think he lost the City as well, because like he wasn't as warm as a person in that aspect, where it's like everyone's gonna back you, and it's like there was like a red flag at the start when like he subbed off Kwanzaa in the first Premier League game last season. And he's like, he's not good enough. Like, he called him out and was like, this is different. Because normally Klopp would be the one encouraging players. Like, okay, he wasn't quite ready, but we'll bring him in, we'll get him this, and then he'll be fine. Like, it was, like, we didn't feel that kind of warmness with Slot. It's like, he's gone now.
That's fair.
He had a really nice open letter when he left as well, which I think he's now left on good terms in the end. And now we've got Iriola, who was a kind of hot manager to bring in, because
he was I didn't think we were going to get Xabi Alonso. I thought he was going to end up at Liverpool. So I'll be honest with you, Iriola was my first choice at Chelsea.
Yeah, but from the flip side, then it's like, okay, if we knew we wanted to get rid of Slot or had those thoughts, we could have done that earlier, or message Alonso and be like, look, he's going end of the season. Can we have a deal in principle where you come in 1st of June and start that kind of stuff? So it's like, that could have, but that's then behind the scenes at Liverpool where, I think they messed up. Alonso was the best manager on the market. We've now effectively got, one of the top 5 managers that were on the market, I think. And it's still a good position to be in, but it's like, okay, we should have moved quicker if we really wanted this guy. And, that could be the difference next season between, like, when we play you, for example, the two battle of the Spanish managers, Alonso could win it purely off of tactical stuff. So it's but that could have then been us in the future.
Yeah, and I think, and it's the same thing with you. It's the same thing with a lot of different managers and a lot of different teams. There's going to be a lot of transition over the sort of the coming months, in terms of who's doing what and everything. Obviously, Xabi Alonso coming in at Chelsea, Maresca coming in at Man City. It's going to be a very, very different look Premier League next year. And I feel like this year has almost been like a year of transition where things have sort of, some things have come up, some things have gone down, certain things that have worked a lot before haven't worked again, some things that haven't worked before have now managed to sort of leapfrog teams up the table. It seems to have been very up and down in terms of the English football year anyway. I think actually a prime example of that now actually comes from a team coming up to the Premier League. Obviously we've had all the Championship as well. You look at Hull, who obviously have come up in very weird circumstances, let's be completely truthful. That's very, very odd. Yeah. But then you look at, of course, the other two that came up as well, but Coventry particularly, no one saw their sort of emergence coming from anywhere. They've obviously cashed in, which is fantastic to see, and looking forward to seeing them in the Premier League. Of course, Frank Lampard at the helm. I don't know whether he'll survive the whole season. It depends on how the season goes for Coventry. But when you're scoring goals like they have been, I'd hope that they would then carry on into the Premier League. So that's going to be potentially another little bit of firepower, especially if they can get a couple of names through the door in the summer transfer window as well. But I just think that the year itself has been very much a year of transition where English football hasn't necessarily been in a great place. I know obviously there's some good teams, and I think in cup competitions, like obviously what's happened with Arsenal, you get the right luck of, right run of games, you can end up doing something. And I think that, as you mentioned, you had Chelsea, Liverpool both knocked out by PSG, and Arsenal now, they went on to win the competition. There's only four knockout rounds, and they beat 3 English teams in it, which sort of says a lot. But I think that, the quality of the Premier League, I don't know if it is where it is as of right now. But I think the other, again, massive thing that is going to be that sort of period of transition and that period of uncertainty is this World Cup that we're now coming on to. I think now, obviously, with the World Cup being so close, the back end of the season felt like, not for everyone, but for a handful of players, I don't want to risk my spot at a World Cup. Why the hell would I? Especially when it's in America. The eyes and the global spectacle that is going to be at this tournament, you want to make sure that you're on the pitch for it. So I completely understand why certain people feel certain ways about certain things or have made decisions that are right for them. It's a weird one, but we're going to move on to the World Cup now. I mean, I feel like the football season has been sort of rounded off quite nicely. Pep finished off with a trophy when he left Manchester City. A lot of things have all gone in the right direction, and it is what it is. But the World Cup now, very quickly, because obviously we're going to get into loads of World Cup content. We're not going to go and write it all out now and tell you everything. But this World Cup is going to be fun. It's going to be difficult to watch for a lot of people. So I feel like there's going to be a lot of things that are going to really draw people together. It has got the chance, very similar to what happened in 2002. We'd unfortunately be too young to really remember it. But when all the games were in Japan and South Korea, really hard to watch all of the games. And I actually think a lot of people end up, my dad used to tell me about when he worked at a company, they actually got bacon rolls in for everyone at like 6 o'clock in the morning, so then they could watch the 6 o'clock in the morning game or whatever it was, then start work at like 8:30, 9 o'clock, whatever thing it is. That can bring people together, but then it also massively divides people that then can't stay up and watch it. So it's a bit of a weird World Cup, this one, but I do think it's got to have a lot of positives, and there's going to be things that are going to be obviously in the forefront of everyone's mind. But particularly, and where I want to start with this, Cameron, just to sort of round off this podcast and transition us, even the podcast gets a transition into into our World Cup content, is this the biggest talking point of this World Cup that has been a talking point for years. It's the 48 teams in this World Cup. Now, I'm not gonna turn around and say that I'm against it. I'm not going to turn around and say I'm for it. I don't know until I've seen that product on the pitch. But logically, adding more teams in means that the quality of the teams that are involved in that tournament are worse.
Yeah,
maybe not always the case, but I have a feeling we are going to see teams get absolutely battered in this World Cup, and I don't know if that's the best thing for football.
I do agree. I think that there are less quality teams in the World Cup this year, but in other years, there's always been a couple of teams that on paper look very poor and will get battered. And
with all due respect
just
to them, how North Korea made that World Cup, I will never understand. But there we are, they qualified. And what happened in that tournament? Who did they get drawn against, do you remember?
Brazil, Portugal.
Yep.
And I can't remember the third team.
I can't remember the other one, but they got battered. They got absolutely battered completely.
I remember the story from that. It's they played all right in their first game. Whoever it was against, I think they lost 2-1, and the dictator at the time was okay, we'll show it because they actually done all right, and then they had to turn it off the broadcast halfway through the Brazil game, and then make up fake stories that are actually they turned it around and won. We just lost our signal.
So when's the quarter-final? What quarter-final?
I mean, they've won every World Cup. Have you not seen this?
Yeah.
No. But
have you seen that skit that someone's done where it's with Kim Jong-un runs a pub quiz? And it's literally every answer. Who won gold in the Beijing Olympics? Tell you who is quick. Kim Jong-un. Yeah, we'll write that down, yeah. That does sound about right. But sorry, very quickly, with countries like Curacao and things like that.
Yeah, look,
they qualified.
They've qualified. They went through. They've done it. They've qualified. They deserve to be there for that. And I think you've got 4 new nations playing in this World Cup. I think that's great for them because it's the first time they experience the World Cup. It then gets the country behind it, and it even gets younger kids. When oh my god, our country's gotten to the World Cup. I want to play in the World Cup for them, and they might have a stronger interest in football, and then try and make a career out of it.
100%.
Obviously, then on the flip side, you mentioned, I think I don't have much hope for them in those group games. If I'm even like Haiti as well, their first World Cup, I think it is in a very long time, maybe over 50 years, but we're not expecting much of them as well. In the group of Brazil, Morocco, and Scotland, that they will get pumped. They will. It's just how it is, unfortunately. But the fact
the worst one of those 3 teams is Scotland, and I think Scotland will pump them as well.
And they'd say Scotland's still pretty good. Like they've got a good.
Yeah,
team.
exactly. Yeah, decent side. That is the group of death, which is weird to think about. Because you think about years gone by with some of the groups that you had, but now it seems that there's not really a group of death. But that's the closest thing to it, isn't it?
I'd argue France, Senegal, Norway, and Iraq.
Yeah, that'd be fun. That would be fun.
I think that would be a great group as well because Norway went in undefeated. They won all 8 games in theirs. Senegal were the African champions. I won't hear anything else. And obviously France are one of, if not the favourite to win the entire tournament. So that's a fun group. But yeah, I think there'll be a lot more goals. Obviously, the timings for us aren't great, but we've watched American football. So
yeah, we're fine.
We're kind of
we're carrying on.
It's just a case of like, okay, that's now every day.
The 5 o'clock in the morning games, unless it's a banger, I don't think they're being watched. But we'll happily do this up until 2 o'clock in the morning, 100%.
Well, until I start my new job, I'll be watching it. So
fair play.
Yeah, so I might do part of the video for you. Just be like, yeah, this now
exclusive
7 a.m.
Exclusive on the podcast.
I've been up all night. Australia beat Jordan 1-0.
Yeah,
didn't miss much.
That's really going to get the engagement going. That really.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, as you're saying, this World Cup is very different from anything we've seen before. It's going to be a time again of transition, I think, for FIFA and for the World Cup. Obviously, they're trying to sort of promote various different things. It's the first time, I think, in history that a World Cup has been played across multiple countries. Oh no, sorry, I lied. 3 countries. I lied.
3 countries.
Sorry,
yeah, you've
3
had multiple
countries.
countries before, but not 3.
But
yeah, you've had like the whole continent doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to expect from this World Cup. I think that's sort of the main takeaway. I mean, I'm not going to go and ask for predictions and winners and all these things, and we'll have loads of content coming out about that in the next couple of weeks. And we're going to meet up as well and film some face-to-face videos for you all, so we can all go and enjoy them as well. So loads of stuff coming up here on the channel.
Hint, I bought a wall chart.
Oh, he's bought a wall chart. Now we're talking.
Yeah,
Bought a wall chart. It's serious now. It's a World Cup.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, this tournament, as it is currently, I mean, it's an unknown quantity. We don't necessarily know who's going to turn up and who won't. You don't necessarily know how much certain political figures are going to try and throw stuff in there. Again,
I think
we don't know.
That'll be
It's
the
all
only
coming.
thing I think that will ruin the tournament is if politics and the wars, say, get involved. Because you've got to think, in the last World Cup with Qatar, you had so much talk before that, and it's like, oh, this country doesn't like, there's been so many deaths building the things. It's such a small country. There is their political views on, like, say, LGBTQ, like that stuff. That's already been like, okay, you can't have no rainbow flags, can't do any of this. It's like very much like, okay, but then at the tournament, once it started, it was a really, really good World Cup with arguably the best final the sport has ever seen.
It's best final I've ever watched, 100%.
Yeah, so it's like it turned out to be a really good tournament despite all the stuff that was said before. I'm hoping this tournament has the same kind of thing. Once the football started, it is purely about the football. And
that's what we all hope for. It's a football World Cup and it's a celebration of football. Obviously, someone's going to go and win it. But I think that the money and everything that is now in with the game is so much of a factor, and especially when it comes to America with broadcasting rights and money and certain things. I don't know, and I think a lot of people are sort of feeling the same way. I don't think that this is going to be a great World Cup in terms of like spectators in the stands and their experience with it. But then also, it's not about the people that are in the stands. They're people that are lucky enough to be able to go and buy tickets and different things. Obviously, go and experience it, create a bit of atmosphere if you can. The product should still be the football. And I think that even when you saw the Club World Cup last year in America, which clearly did not have the same hype as what this World Cup will, a lot of the stadiums were half empty, and all of that stuff. And I think that we still saw, especially in the last Club World Cup, from various different countries and various different nations and various different teams, we saw really, really good football that came and rose to the top anyway. And that Club World Cup, a lot of people wouldn't have watched loads of it. But the ones that did watch random games here and there, I mean, if you watch like Benfica or something against Inter Miami, like it was a reasonable game of football. I can't remember exactly who played who, but games like that was, they were good. And I think that, again, football should rise to the top in this World Cup. But for us, we're going to have loads of stuff coming out. We're going to have reactions to all of the England games. We are going to have reactions for other big fixtures as well. If anything massive happens in the World Cup, we'll be reacting to it. It won't be every single game because of the fact of the time differences and various different things, but we'll try and do as much as we can to get loads of content out on social media and most importantly on YouTube as well. But essentially, this World Cup for us is a time where we're now going to transition and go fully for the World Cup. If transfer news comes in, especially players that are involved in the World Cup, we will talk about it. But if there's a lot of other stuff, we're going to ignore it. We will come back to it at a later date and we'll go and figure it out from there. But this World Cup is going to be a lot of fun. It'll be a lot of fun here on the channel as well. We will be the first people to praise and we'll be the first people to criticise. We'll be the first people to laugh at ourselves and laugh at other people as well. It's a love, it's a spectacle, and it should be that completely. So if you don't want to miss any of that World Cup content, make sure you smash the subscribe button, like button, whatever it is that you're watching this on, make sure you hit that like button and follow us on our journey for the World Cup. There's going to be loads of things coming up and I'm really, really looking forward to it. But to round off this podcast, to finish up the last one for a little while, Cameron, thank you very, very much appreciated. Subscribe if you are new around here, and there is plenty of content coming up. So although we won't see you together for a little while, we will figure out when that will be. We will see you very, very soon, and make sure you check out all of our socials, TikTok, Instagram, what's the other one that I do? Shorts. Forget about shorts, you're already here anyway. But yeah, make sure you follow us on all those various social medias, and we'll see you soon for loads of World Cup content. Take care, stay safe, and we'll see you very, very soon.